So hello and welcome to the second episode of the Django-Tenants SaaS series using Django, Neon-DB and the Django-Tenants package. So in our previous video we talked about how we can create up a new Django project, how we can set up a Neon account, and also how we can configure our database configurations for the project. So with this one I'm going to take it a step further by configuring the Django-Tenants package. So we are going to go from installing the package, doing the configurations, and creating our tenant. So let's get started. So to actually work with Django-Tenants, you need to install the package on itself, then we install it, then we add it inside our settings, inside the installed applications, and plus we also need to perform a bunch of other configurations which we'll see based on the documentation that is provided by Django-Tenants. So let's first begin by installing the package. I've already installed it, but if you haven't, all you need to do is to just run pip install Django-Tenants. So Django-Tenants, then you just hit enter. That will install the latest version of Django-Tenants. Then as you can see, it's already installed in my application, so in my project. So the next thing that you need to do is to actually add it inside our settings. So the project is FlexiCache. Then if you go to the settings.py file, we need to add Django-Tenants at the top. Then as you can see, they have been grouped into shared apps, and also we have the tenant apps. So shared apps are like global applications that are being shared by the tenant. So for instance, we have the Django-Tenants, which is the third-party application that have been installed. Any other third-party app that you've installed, such as maybe Django REST framework, the request library, all those packages that you will install, you need to add them inside your shared applications. Then other applications such as members, since this is a microfinance application, we'll be having like members app, we'll be having like the loans app, we'll be having like the payments app. All those ones are specific to the tenant, so we need to add them inside the tenant applications. But applications such as home, accounts, the tenants itself, those are shared applications, so we need to add them inside shared apps. Then once you are done, you need to add the installed apps. Then you just say installed apps is equal to shared apps. Then we just loop through it just to ensure that we don't have duplicates. So that's the first setting that we need to have in order to use Django-Tenants. So the next thing that we need to configure is the middleware, and this is really important because if you get it wrong, your application will not function correctly. So the middleware, the tenant middleware should be the first one inside your middleware list. It should be at the very top, because when the request comes, they should first arrive at the middleware so that they can tell which schema to use. So it's really important that you add your middleware at the top of your list of middlewares. So that's one of the mistakes that I did when I was getting started with this one, so it's really worth looking into. Then once we have that sorted, you also need to add the templates settings over here. So that is it basically for settings. The next thing that we need to do is that we need to figure out how to work with the tenant itself. So the project itself will not just work, we need to have like a tenant applications. So in my case over here, I'll call it tenants, but it doesn't have to be tenants. You can call it anything that you want. You can call it client or just any other thing that you want. But the most important is that you need to tell Django the tenant model. For example, here I'm specifying my tenant model is tenants.circle-tenant. So since I'll be working with like multiple circles, I need to have like a circle tenant over here. That's the name of our model. Then we also need to have the subdomain model, that is tenants.domain. Then of course we need to set the public schema, that is called public, because in Django-Tenants we'll be having multiple schemas. We'll be having like so in Django-Tenants we are using the per schema. So I'm also setting my public schema name to public, and also the root URL configuration, which is FlexiCache.urs. Basically the project level URLs inside of my projects. So let's head over to my tenants application and go to my model so that you can see some of the settings that we have over here. So basically I'm defining my tenant model. It's called Circle Tenant, but you can name it anything. Most people like to leave it with the generic name of tenant, but I feel like you need to customize it. For example, Circle Tenants makes more sense if you're going to work with circles. So we just have the packages because it will, so we need to go ahead and make our migrations, then we can go and migrate the project. So in order to do that, I'll just clear my screen here once again. So if I say python manage.py make migrations, then the name of the application is tenants, just like that. Okay, so my migrations are created. Let's migrate the project. So migrate. This is standard public. It might take a second for now. So once our migrations is done and we've migrated the project, we can now go ahead and create a super user for the project. So we need a super user here. Create super user, back like that. Then so right now I'm using the default authentication backend, but later in the course I'll be able to add some custom backends for this one, because we'll be using fields such as staff ID for the tenants. Then also the members, once I create a members portal, they'll be able to log in using their phone number. So I'll have to create like a phone number authentication backend to be able to handle that. But just to keep things simple and short for now, we'll use the default authentication backend. Then password can supply. Now let me just cancel that. Let's start it again. Created something wrong. So create super user. The username should be Brian, and the email, I'm just gonna keep it simple. Password. Yeah, so created the super user. Now let's spin the server and check how the project. We should be able to see our landing page, which is still just a basic landing page for now, but later we'll be able to add some spices into it. So with that said, we've just created our landing page, which is now working perfectly. Now let's go ahead and create the first tenant for our project. So since we're working with circles, we're just going to create our first tenant over here. That is going to be, let's clear the screen. So let's say python manage. Then Django-Tenants do have a inbuilt command that is called create tenant. So you don't have to write like a custom command for creating a tenant. All you need to do is to say manage.py create tenant, then you press enter. Then the schema name, this is now the schema name that will be used to create a schema. So right now in our Neon-DB, if you check under tables, you'll be able to see that we only have one schema. Let's check on tables under Neon-DB. If we go to schema, we can also see that we only have one schema. But now if we were to create a new one, let's just give it one that's called Uwezo Sacco. Uwezo Sacco, just like that. Then now the name is now a long name that can be used to be displayed. Now Uwezo Sacco is just the name of the schema, but now the name is now a name that fully represents the schema, so maybe the organization that you're creating for the application. So let's call it Uwezo Sacco. It should be caps at the first, so Uwezo Sacco. Yes, we can add limited. Then owner, we're just going to say 1 to represent the first user that I just created, that is the super user. Then subscription to monthly, yes, I want them to be monthly whenever they're created. The package is trial for the first 30 days. Its trial should be active, just press enter. Has a dedicated USSD. So since this is going to be like a USSD based application where they'll be able to, members will be able to borrow, so we want some members to have like dedicated USSD and also shared USSD. So for now, let's just leave it blank. Is active, we're gonna have that blank. Then just like that, you can see now it's creating a migration, but this time it's not for public, it's now for Uwezo Sacco. Then now here is where you need to supply the domain for your tenant. So remember, all these tenants will be accessing this system via a subdomain, so we need to have a domain name that is going to be Uwezo, then followed by sacco.localhost. So it's really important that you have this one inside your allowed host, inside the etc directory, inside your Windows machine or whichever machine that you are using. So once you have that, you can just press enter. Is primary? Yes, let's leave it to true. Primary just means that a subdomain can have like multiple other domains, like let's say admin.uwezosacco.localhost. So we want to keep the uwezosacco.localhost as our primary domain, so that is going to be true. And then just like that, we have created our first tenant. Now let's create a tenant super user. So we have different types of users. We have the super user and we also have the tenant super user. So let's clear our screen. Then now the command for creating a tenant super user, it's inbuilt. You don't have to create a custom command for this one. So create tenant hyphen super user. Alright, so let's continue and supply it with some. So which tenant do you want to create the super user for? So you can have like multiple subdomains, so you need to choose the schema that you want to create the tenant for. If you're not sure, you can just type question mark and it will display all the available schemas that you have. So right now we only have the first one, that is Uwezo Sacco. So I'm just going to say I want Uwezo Sacco as my schema that I want to create the super user for. Notice that I'm using the name, I'm using the schema name, not the name that is Uwezo Sacco Limited. So that's another point that you need to note. Then the name of this schema, the name of this admin, the tenant admin is going to be, I'm just going to call it Uwezo at FlexiCash. Okay, let's just keep it simple by just saying Uwezo. Then the email, we can say Uwezo at FlexiCash.com. Password should be just that one. Confirm the password. Alright, so we have successfully created our schema. We also created tenant super user. So let's go ahead and inspect inside our Neon Let's refresh this one. So you will be able to see that we now have a brand new schema called Uwezo Sacco. So run server, then we are going to the admin portal. So we're going to say that one, then we're going to say admin portal. That should take us to the Django's default admin portal. Then you can use our password here. So you can see that we have our domains over here, and if we were to have a look at under domains, you can see that we have uwezosacco.localhost. Then we also have the tenant itself, like a landing page for the Uwezo Sacco and not the default home page. So that is the next thing that we want to handle in our third episode of the Django-Tenants SaaS series. So I hope you found some value in this one. If you do so, please consider subscribing, liking the video and sharing it. It really helps the algorithm and make us create more engaging videos like this one. So that's it for today, and see you in the next one.